one and all, and welcome to Two Pigs in a Pod, a new podcast brought to you by the People in Glazing Society. For those not aware what the People in Glazing Society, or PIGS for short, is, it's a networking event that started in 2004 and held around the UK and even in the US to bring members of the glazing and fenestration sectors together to really talk and socialise and really enjoy what this sector has to offer. My name is George Lewis and I'll be your host. The glazing sector has an abundance of stories, characters and opinions, and each episode will focus on trying to share some of those stories from throughout the supply chain and talk about some of the biggest talking points of our industry and ask what the future looks like for our sector. Today we've got Elton Boocock of Business Pilot. Welcome, Elton.
Hey, how are we doing?
Yeah, good, thank you very much. So we'll just jump straight into it. I'm sure there's not many people that don't know who you are in the industry, but for those that don't, can you give us a brief explanation of who you are and what you do within our industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you've already said, Elton Boocock, and I'm the managing director of Business Pilot. So, Business Pilot is a business management system specifically for installation companies. But when it comes to glazing, we started out in glazing. So, we'd say even more specifically for glazing because of I suppose, the legacy of it. It actually came out of installation businesses from within the glazing sector, so window and door retailers. So my job is to kind of, I suppose, give it direction, drive the business forward, and look out to the future of what's coming down the line for the industry, and make sure that we have a product that's fit for purpose, really.
Okay. And how did you get into the glazing sector, and more importantly, why did you get into the glazing sector?
Why is something that I seem to hear everybody saying they ask themselves every day. I fell into it. So I didn't even choose to get into it. So here's the thing. My background is sort of marketing, systems and, data, automation, all that sort of stuff. And so I was delivering this seminar. These are the days before we had webinars, of course, because we're talking pre-COVID. And I'm delivering this seminar on marketing and specifically digital marketing and Google and all that sort of stuff. And we're looking at analytics. And I get talking to these two guys who are in the room, complete random audience, in as much as there's these guys who were later going to introduce as being Chairwell Windows, but so these guys are in the room, there's accountants in the room, there's everybody, it's across the sectors. As a result of that, I start working with them, purely digital marketing at this point. And it's through that we then ended up developing the software. So they already had some software, but it just wasn't cutting it for them. They wanted to grow the business, and we identified that they needed better systems. We then started to look at building a system because we looked around and couldn't find anything. And actually, there's still not a lot now, but certainly then, there's probably one piece of software you could have used, and everything else was more generic. So your Salesforces of the world, and so we decided to build one. And I guess I therefore fell into the glazing sector. But I've got to say, and maybe it's because I've only been in it for a few years, I'd never asked myself the question why. When I hear people say that, I absolutely love this sector. So I kind of fell into it, but I'm really glad that I did.
Yeah. And what was your before you obviously started speaking to the Business Pilot guys? Yeah. What did you think glazing was, and did that quickly change after you was actually involved in it?
So I think, okay, so two sides. What did I think glazing was? Well, probably like every other, if you like, consumer. It's just windows and doors. I didn't think any more about it. They're just products. It could be bricks, or it could be cars, or it could be anything else. It was just a product, I didn't really think anything of it. Clearly you knew the whole, what we've now seen as the white gold, as people will have watched on TV. So yes, you knew things like that, like estate agents or the double glazing salesman. So I suppose there was a few cliches and so on, but I didn't really think much of it, certainly as a product or a sector, I didn't really have any thoughts. Um, However, once I then got involved in it, I was very quickly really surprised how close the sector is. So, like, previous to Business Pilot, I've worked in many sectors with marketing. Marketing is just like, let's say, accountants and so on. We get to work across a lot of different sectors, and even the own sector of marketing, it just doesn't have that close knit stuff that I've seen in this sector. So that was the biggest thing that I found that I wasn't expecting. It's not that I had an expectation either way, but nothing could have prepared me for just how much. And I tell the story that I was nominated to go to the G Awards in 2019 from the guys. You go to that, and I knew absolutely nobody in that room. I really was genuinely Billy No Mates,
Yeah.
and so I'm walking around the room, but by was it 22 or 20? No, it must have been 21 or 22. The first one after COVID, anyway. By that one, I already knew so many people, and you think, and we just had those lockdown years, as
Yeah.
it were, um, and yet I knew so many people, and it just is a complete picture of what this sector is like.
Yeah.
How everybody knows each other, competition, and yet still, conversation. And that's the piece. I mean, I love that.
Yeah.
I really love that.
And do you think that's what important, like where pigs comes into things of being that networking event where if you don't
Yeah.
if you're new to the industry and you don't really know, you can actually turn up and you won't feel alone for that long because there are so many people that are happy to talk to you, whether you're a rival company or not.
100%. And I've also had it, because let's face it, pigs, for those that don't know, is based around meeting in a bar, essentially. So and I've definitely heard it said that, yeah, it's just people going out for a drink. And I've always argued the point that actually it's way more than that.
Yeah.
Way more than that. It's the networks that I've been able to become involved in. I'd go as far as saying the friends that I've now met, not just colleagues, not just anything else, the friends that I've now met as a result of, and things like pigs, but specifically pigs and that network, it's phenomenal. So it's exactly where it comes in.
Yeah. And do you think in an ideal world we would be doing that as much as possible? Obviously, we've got things like the Fit Show where the networking. Do you think that's what makes our sector so good?
Yeah, I do. Well, so I think yes, in part, but there's also something about. I think we've caught a piece of magic, and we don't really realise that it's magic, because you can put on all the networking you want, and I built, like, the marketing agency, I built it on networking, where you do these breakfast meetings. People typically think of like the BNIs of this world. Well, I mean, there's a whole bunch of them that are not BNI, and that's how I built the first business, but within the sector, I don't know. There's just something that we happen to have. It's that piece where people join but never leave. We've got some magic in this sector, and I don't know how it happened. And I don't think everybody's aware that we've actually got it,
Yeah. And do you
because
think
maybe
we're
they
we're
haven't seen.
we're not really good at actually showing that off to a wider scale? I think a lot of people in the glazing industry know how good it is and how good it can be, but we might not necessarily know outside of that remit.
And I also think, look, there's a Britishness about, what we're doing. So we'd almost be perceived to be arrogant if we started to say just how good this thing was that
Yeah.
we had. So I think there's the Britishness, but I'm also not. I think not everybody realizes quite what we've got.
Yeah. Do you think it's
I think
important
that
to actually for the future of the industry to actually not be so British and actually shout a bit from the rooftops and say, actually,
Yeah, absolutely.
do you think that's something we're probably lacking at the moment that we probably should be doing in now and in
Yeah,
the future?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We talk about, there's all of this sort of building our skills and so on. And we're really talking about like the more practical elements of it. And that's also, we
Yeah.
should promote that. But actually, I think what people want more and more is to be part of something. And in fact, actually, when I look at recruitment now, when you look at the younger generations, they're looking to be part of something more than they're looking for a salary.
Yeah.
And they need both, of course. But in terms of if they were to put a priority list, if I go to people who were like my parents' age and even probably down to my age, they'd move for salary.
Mm.
If they were offered more money, they'd move.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, when I start looking at my kids' age and what will become, their kids, then it's not just about salary, it's about being part of something.
Mm.
And here's the thing, in this sector, we've already got that.
Yeah.
We've already got it. We don't have to try and manufacture that. We've got it and we're not selling on it.
Yeah. Oh, well, talking about obviously your time, it's been a few years now. What is there anything that you've realised you didn't expect to actually what the industry is like?
So I think that community aspect is definitely something that I didn't expect.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to find that for sure. Um, and just the way you'll find competitors who are quite happy to collaborate.
Yeah.
It's something like I've always been really keen on that. I'm very much about people first, and therefore, if you're people first, then you want to collaborate anyway because that's just a human thing. It's not a business thing; it's a human thing. Um, but to actually find a collection of companies and people like that was definitely a surprise, a pleasant surprise.
Okay. And moving on, as you said, you started off in marketing. Do you think that's actually helped Business Pilot in a way that maybe someone else starting out doing something
Yeah,
similar to what Business Pilot has become has actually helped you
yeah,
in a way to promote it to or doing different things that you not necessarily
yeah.
someone would know?
100%. I think there's a few things. If I look at what I've been able to pull into Business Pilot from, if you like, my wider background, definitely. We are very and marketing people tend to look at as okay. What does our marketing do? Well, marketing is about building a website or printing a brochure or going to the fit show or whatever. And actually, I really don't see that as marketing. I see that as almost the symptoms. But it's not really marketing. To me, marketing is how do I connect a product or service to somebody that needs that product or service,
Yeah.
and therefore it starts way before promotion. All of those things that typically get called marketing to me are not, they're promotion.
Yeah.
Marketing is about understanding needs, and the fact that we are so customer led is marketing.
Yeah.
And I've pulled that in rather than saying, hey, this is what you need, Mr. Customer. Our developments are really based on what customers tell us
Yeah.
they want and need. So that definitely has helped us
Yeah,
and
and do you think
continues
that's
to.
changed your way of thinking? My question would be, if you could go back and tell yourself one thing from when you started in marketing, do you think it would be that way of thinking that certain things are not marketing there and maybe
Yeah, 100%. I remember fairly early on reading Kotler on marketing. So for those in marketing, I mean, he's quite an authority on marketing. Um, and I really probably didn't quite grasp fully what what he was saying. It's very academic rather than hey, here's a pretty brochure, you know. So, and I'm not sure I fully grasped it. I think I had to experience some of this. You know, there's a few things. You know, we build things in our system because they are the right thing to do, not because we necessarily see an instant revenue stream.
Yeah.
But that is marketing.
Yeah.
Even that is marketing, you know. So yeah, there's definitely things. I think there's probably still even things in Business Pilot where if I just look back at what are we now, sort of 6 years, I suppose, since we started building 2019 Fit Show when we officially launched. I mean, we launched a bit before that. So there's probably still things that I'd even tell, you know, the Business Pilot month one Elton as well.
Yeah.
So
Okay. And obviously, you're quite uniquely placed, or Business Pilot is quite uniquely placed within the industry that you're talking to
yeah,
installers daily of all different sizes. What does the industry look like for you in terms of the outlook? Is it a semi positive one, or is it potential for troubled water ahead?
it's really interesting, and actually, I spoke about this at the last year's Fit Show. So what I think we've seen is a real mix, and you know, and it's the C word again. It's COVID. So what happened there is we probably had installers who were just about getting by
Yeah.
when COVID hit. You had some of those who instantly closed up because they just didn't know what to do about this thing. But for those that didn't, all of a sudden, they got a windfall that nobody was expecting, you know, and therefore you could have let your pet dog run your business, and you would have come out, at least in that moment, you would have come out thinking you were making a lot of profit.
Yeah.
You know, you wouldn't even call it profit. The kind of companies I'm referring to, they'd have called it making a lot of money. You know, and then of course all of that started not drying up but normalizing. You know, this is the thing. When we analyze the data, actually what's really happened is we've gone back to pre-COVID. We haven't actually fallen off a cliff.
Yeah.
We've just that bubble isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
So when that life support bubble was taken away, then we've seen a mix. Those businesses that were really, really solid businesses before and during that windfall have continued to be so. And they probably didn't make as much profit as they expected during that boom. I don't think anybody did. They made more money, as in more money revenue, but I don't think they made the profits. But they were tight enough, sensible enough to now be able to weather not the storm, but weather the normalization, the normalizing.
Yeah.
Whereas those who just saw the money coming in, of course, are the ones that we're seeing going missing. You know, those are the ones now that have struggled or are struggling or have struggled to the point of they're no longer around.
Yeah.
You know,
And
so I think we've seen a real mix actually.
okay, and in terms of obviously in the news recently, we had about SafeStyle and the
Yeah.
obviously terrible news about them. Should the industry be worried that is potentially going to happen again, or could you see it as maybe not a one-off, but it was just a sort of separate thing?
Okay, could it happen again? Of course, it always could.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting. You know, there's we've got to value ourselves and our product. And this is something that's actually across all sectors. The minute we start going on price, doesn't matter what sector we're in now. So come out of glazing, anything that we start fighting on price is a race to the bottom.
Yeah. It's only going to end one way.
We have to, you know, yeah, there's only one way it's going to go. And that's all fine as long as that bottom is sitting still within profit. So I'm making less profit, but at least I'm making profit.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. But then when the challenges come, you haven't got enough there. There's not enough flex. So you, I think what we now need, and I think we're seeing this as well, but I think what we need across our sector is, and it's at the consumer end, so it is the installer side, retail windows and doors. I think what we need is those guys to realize now that we are in a retail industry. That's why we keep referring it back to retail windows and doors, to almost emphasize the point. The Bob and Dave in a van, that's a really tough end to be in.
Yeah.
Really tough. But if you can set yourself apart, if you can show the value of having your company rather than just X window, X door, then I think that's where you can start to really make profits, but also deliver value, service, all of those things. And I think we're starting to see some of that. That's some of the change I think I've seen just in the last sort of 5 years or so.
Yeah, and I guess it goes hand in hand with obviously the professionalisation that we're seeing in the industry. I think it is happening, but is there anything
Yeah.
you think that we can do further in the next maybe year or two to actually really? Obviously, there's new regulations coming in, and that should bring about a professionalisation on its own. But is there anything else you think we can do?
Yeah. So I think it's that we've got to see ourselves as running intelligent businesses, and all of what that means. So some of that is exactly what I was just saying there about really setting up, why would somebody come to me, and therefore understanding that. So, and that kind of, I guess, is, like I've got the marketing hat on, and that is what it's about, connecting. Why would somebody use us? But really smartening up, that becoming a lot more data driven. And again, of course, I'm going to say that we run a business management software. So it sounds too obvious for me to just say that, but actually, if you are not on top of every area of your business, then could another safe style happen? Yeah, absolutely. Because it could happen to any sector. It's not about our sector then. It's about, we really need to be on top of our numbers.
Yeah, and do you think I know yours obviously spoke at the Fit Show about sort of AI and that sort of thing
Mm,
as well.
mm.
Do you think that there's that reluctance from the people you're talking to about taking that on board, or is it kind of something that people are thinking, actually this can help me in certain aspects of the job, that the admin type jobs where they're not that big of a job but they take up a lot of their time? Are you seeing that from your
So
customers?
yeah, okay. So I think there's a real mix, and let's face it. A lot of the sector currently, certainly in the at the retail end or at the installer end, we're not always looking at the younger generation. There's a real turnover of, certainly that father son thing where businesses are being passed down father daughter. Some of ours are, it's the daughters taking it on. So we're certainly in a bit of a transition period for that. And when we're talking to the younger generation, then absolutely they want all the tools they can, you know. But I'd also share a bit of caution on that as well, because are we putting the tools in because we like tools? We like that new gadget on the car or whatever it is. Or are we doing it based upon what will actually help the business?
Yeah.
So I'm really into sort of pioneering and new tech and all the rest of it. But I firmly think it has to have a reason. It has to have a purpose.
Yeah.
There's no point doing it just because we can. So when it comes to AI, I think there's many things. I think there's a reluctance because, of course, AI is going to steal all our jobs. It's all of that sort of thing. Nobody really understands what AI is.
Yeah.
You know, so there's certainly some reluctance on that side, but I think it's just people don't understand what it can do.
Yeah.
And if you remember, because I remember that conversation, and it was very much about, like, for us, our support line could all be AI, and my response was that look, until AI is better than a human interaction, we won't be putting it in.
Yeah.
Now, can we already be using bits of AI? Absolutely. But until it is better than a human response, then to use that technology would actually make what we've got worse. And that's what I mean by we could use it just because it's there,
Yeah.
but actually that's not a good reason,
Yeah.
you know. And where I'm more excited about it is I've got a vision for Business Pilot whereby it's almost plug and play. If you use Business Pilot, it guarantees the success of your installation business. That, to me, the use of AI to help with that is far more exciting than using a bot for your tech support.
Yeah.
You know, it's,
Okay. And moving on, obviously, to talk about pigs, seeing it's a pigs
Mm.
podcast, and I know you've been to a few of them. Have you got a memory that stands out that over the last
Yeah,
few years?
yeah. I've actually got quite a few, but one of them that always makes me smile is St. Patrick's Day, so Paddy's Day in Manchester, and I'm trying to think if it was last year or it might have been the year before. And ended up in the Peaky Blinders bar. The Irish band are playing above the bar, um, and I'm just in that environment of a lot of fun and looking around, and it's all of these people who you get to see in the magazines every
Yeah.
month, you know, and we're all just there, and it's friends, you
Yeah.
know, and so yeah, that for me has definitely been one memory, but there's too many memories,
Yeah.
you know.
So some not are probably not allowed to be said.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So some of which will keep as memories.
And then if you had to bring pigs to, if you was in charge of putting the plan together to bring pigs to one place that you might think that's beneficial for it, or you'd want to go to, is it where would you pick?
What, in terms of an actual venue,
Yeah, yeah. So like
like a
a place in
location?
yeah, either in the UK or even further afield.
Well, I mean, look, Pigs has been to Vegas, you know, so certainly from our side, we were in Atlanta last year, and we've literally just booked Dallas for this year. So Dallas would be a good one.
Yeah,
But I also think just the way we go around the regions is really good.
yeah.
You know, we seem to avoid London because of probably cost to get everybody in London, but I definitely think we've got a good thing going with how we take it around the country.
Okay. And if you was in my shoes and you was hosting this podcast and you could pick one guest, it doesn't have to be from the industry, or you can be if you want. Who would you pick to come, and who would be a dream guest to have a conversation with?
So I think, I mean, it's pigs, so we do, we definitely want them from within the industry, and you've got to, in my mind, I want to pick, if you like, some of the pigs veterans, as it were. So the big pigs guys. I mean, you know, Mr. Guy Hubble's always going to be at a pigs,
Yeah.
every time. Sam Nucky again, so there's names like that. I mean, the M Plus boys, obviously, they try not to miss. But
How would
I
you get
think
how would you
there's
get on with your business pilot boys? How do you think they would be good to?
ah
Would you be
yeah,
intrigued in
absolutely.
having them on
Do,
for
do
you
you
to
know
host?
what? And also it doesn't always need to be, if you like, the MD.
No.
When you talk to someone like say Matt Gaskin, who does our business development,
Yeah.
Matt is ex Everest.
Yeah.
The number of people. I think that's quite an interesting conversation to have with somebody like Matt. But even I mean, it was really fascinating at Fit Show last year. We had somebody join us, Arwen, and her first day at Business Pilot was actually the Wednesday of Fit Show. And it's mid-morning, and she's saying hello to all these people she knows, because we recruit from within the industry, because we want everybody who's actually using or helping on Business Pilot, we want them to have used similar tools or Business Pilot in a glazing sector, so
Yeah.
the experience is it comes across. So again, just talking to anybody who's been in a few of these companies and just seen different areas of the sector,
Yeah.
because there are so many different areas.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, I definitely would pay to see you interview yeah, the guys from Business Pilot. I think that would be a brilliant conversation. Yeah.
Well, what was I going to say? We'll try and line it up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, obviously, thanks for that. But for the final part of the podcast, we just want to do some quick fire questions and like
Yeah, sure.
just they're nothing too heavy. Obviously, we've gone over some good stuff in the main part of the podcast, but these are just like just to get to know our guests a bit better. So I'm just going to fire off some questions at you and
Go for
give it the first answer that comes into your head. So first question is: do you prefer talking over phone or by email?
Depends how busy I am. I much prefer video to phone and phone to email,
Okay.
but I also acknowledge sometimes time pressure.
Yeah,
Email does work.
yeah. And what's your favourite thing to do outside of work?
Do you know what? As you can see behind me, you can see the drum kit.
Yeah.
So I do music. I actually write music, which is the stuff you can't see that's in front of me. Or if I don't have a lot of time to sit down, I'll just get on the drums. So it's probably my music.
Okay. And keeping on the music theme, what's your go-to karaoke song?
Difficult. I don't want to be too classic. So what was it? Was it the first thing that came into my head?
Definitely the first thing
But
that come
that's
into your
way
head.
well, that's way
'Cause
too cliche. It'd have to be something like Angels then, or whatever. A
oh,
bit of
okay.
Robbie.
Yeah, nice.
So
And yeah, so on the music theme again, what was the first gig you ever attended?
Erasure.
Oh, okay, that's a good one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Erasure at Milton Keynes Bowl, and I still, I go to their concerts even now,
yeah,
and so I managed to meet the guys a few years ago, and yeah, that's my synthesizer love.
nice. What's your favourite place to visit?
Well, I'm regularly in Orlando, so it'd have to be Orlando. So yeah.
And who would play you in a movie about yourself or about Business Pilot?
Wow, you
Or
see,
who would you
and this
want
is
to
the
play
thing.
and who would play
I
you?
was just about to say you can't say who would play, because you're going to come out with an answer like, I don't know, Brad Pitt. 'Cause everybody's going to think they've
Yeah,
got although that shows my age as well. But who would play it? Um, no, I'm going to bring it back down. I would want it to be somebody more like a Ricky Gervais. I'd want it to be
nice.
funny.
Yeah.
They don't. Yeah.
And lastly, to bring it back into the glazing industry, obviously we could be sitting here in a year's time. Like, what do you think the industry is going to look like in a year's time? Do you think it'll be better, worse, or about the same?
No, I think the dust will have settled from all of this bubble bursting, and I think we will be in a better position. I think things that are going to influence the sector anyway, external factors, interest rates, etc., will have all had an impact, and I think we will be in better shape. And I think the businesses within the sector will also be in a better shape. So not just the sector and the economy side of it. I think the businesses will be.
Okay.
Just taking us alone,
Yeah.
we typically get 30 to 40 enquiries a month.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people looking to improve their systems,
Great.
and we're just one tiny part of it. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of professionalism coming our way.
Okay. Cool. And as a last sort of thing, we want people, I guess, to give a shout out to anyone they want. It can be family, it can be friends, it can be people in the industry. So, yeah, fire away if there's anyone you wanna shout out for the podcast.
So for me, I want to shout out to the team at Business Pilot, just because they make my life easy. So whether it is Matt or Kerry, Bex, Arwin, Katie. Now I've started, I've got to make sure I remember everybody,
Yeah.
haven't I? So Neil, Matt Developer, obviously the two Ryans and Jim. So yeah, I want to shout out to everybody. Oh, Lauren, forgot Lauren. Wow, this will kill me. So yeah, and what was I going to say? Yeah, so no, I want to shout out to all of them for sure, and also the Business Pilot users. I talk a lot about Business Pilot community.
Yeah.
These guys are phenomenal because they are pushing their businesses forward professionally. They're not just leaving it to chance. They're not writing on the back of a fag packet anymore. These guys are taking things to the next level. And that takes commitment. I never underestimate it. When I talk to people about Business Pilot and taking on a system, I say, look, this is amazing. It's going to transfer all that stuff you'd expect. But I also say, look, don't underestimate the challenge that it will be as well, because you're going to have to change the way you do lots of things and become more professional. So I want to give a big shout out to all of those users because they've taken on the challenge. They're reaping the benefits, but they took on the challenge, so they deserve to as well.
Oh, nice. Well, I think that's a nice way to end it. So obviously, thank you very much, Elton, for coming on. And I thought that was a great chat. And for the people listening and watching, please visit the People in Glazing website at www.peopleinglazing.co.uk to find out Elton's podcast or any other episodes, and also to be able to sign up to our newsletter, which goes out every 2 weeks. So that's it from us today. We'll hope to join you again soon. Thanks for now.